Hey everybody, this is the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
And this is John Black.
And on this week's episode, we're going to discuss the new film Takers, starring Matt Dillon, Idris Elba, Paul Walker, and Hayden Christensen. And we're going to discuss the new film from director Neil Marshall, Centurion. And then we've got a situation where John saw The Last Exorcism. I did not. So John's going to talk about it, tell me whether or not try to convince me as to whether or not I should see it or not. And then I'm going to talk about Rob Reiner's new film Flipped, which John wasn't able to make. And so we'll see if I can convince John to go see it or not. And then we're going to get into our picks of the week. So let's just kick things off.
We're takers, gents. That's what we do for a living. We take. We got less than 1 hour. We good?
All signs point to it.
Get on the floor!
Went down pretty fast. Automatic weapons.
45!
Precision timing. Degree of difficulty's off the charts.
They were hot, no doubt about that. We'll make it that much sweeter when we take them down.
John, man, what did you think?
It was an average. When I think heist film, I want lots of action and I want some kind of twist. That's going to have me go, wow, that some red herring's been thrown in my face, and I get surprised.
Mm-hmm.
There was no surprise here. There was a lot of action. I don't think the action was very well done. The idea that the thing is this, it has a bunch of rap stars, Chris Brown, T.I. They're not good actors, and Chris Brown looks ridiculous doing all that. What do they call that? Lampore, jumpore? That kind of combat thing where they fly and jump all over stuff? What do they call that?
Parkour.
Parkour.
Yeah, there was a version of parkour in this. It was kind of...
That's what it was. It was a version of it. It was a bad version of it because Chris Brown's not really sliding down this, skyscraper, just holding on to the walls and stuff like that.
John, man, the editing of the action scenes in this film
awful.
Kind of drove me nuts. I was okay with it for like a half hour, and then I just sort of really decided that I wanted to see this movie instead of just the blur. And part of the problem is that they filmed this movie digitally, and they move the camera so fast that it just, when you're doing pans and tilts with these digital lenses, it just becomes like a blur. And with the editing, this is what I thought while I was watching the movie. Is it possible to do a chase scene without 50 edits, where you can really feel the energy of what's happening instead of trying to create the energy with the edits?
Sure, you can do it. They did it in French Connection.
Okay.
That was all. But the thing was, that was all real. It was, they strapped the camera onto a car and then drove like maniacs.
Knowing that sets me at ease. That like there is some real, some real filmmaking. Not just a blurry mess. A-team.
No, I think A-team. That's a new code for a blurry mess. It's A-teamed. I don't know much about this guy, John Lucenhop.
He's
director.
new.
Yeah, well, he did Lockdown, which was another heist movie, wasn't it? Lockdown, a heist movie?
I don't think I've seen it.
I'm just looking on IMDb, and it looks like it was had Philip Seymour Hoffman in it. I don't know, but I never saw it. But that was 6 years ago. There's a reason the guy hasn't made a movie in 6 years, I think.
John, you know what this movie is like? It's just, if you're going to do a double feature, you might as well show one of the Fast and Furious movies with us, because this is like a heist film for the Fast and Furious crowd. It's like Gentleman's Quarterly, trying to pull off an armored car heist.
And it was the most ridiculous armored car heist you've ever seen. Right in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, they blow a hole in the road so the armored truck falls in, and then they're going to rob it.
Right.
I mean, these guys don't have the sense to pull a normal stick up to walk in and say, give me your money. Let alone this elaborate, and everyone has their one, I'm the demolitions expert, I'm the gun guy, I'm the.
Well, we're meant to think they are. We're meant to think that, because they say that they. Well, let's. I'm going to step back and say that they're all pretty wealthy, because there's a fair amount of time spent covering their goods, their apartments, their beautiful cars, their beautiful clothes, and their lifestyle, which is it's sleek and beautiful. It's like a mahogany dream. with all the...
Did you just make a reference to the movie Mahogany?
I'm saying there's just this...
No, did you?
The leather, all of their leather furniture, all of their expensive shoes, the convertible that one guy drives. It's, some insane money. So they're basically this group of, I don't know, 5-6 guys who get together once a year to pull a heist. And this is the heist that's going to get them through the next year, So to quickly rehash a story that isn't that great to begin with, they had a heist back in 2004, I think it was, that went awry. And they had to leave one of their guys behind. And this guy goes to jail. And this is T.I., the rapper. His character in the movie is Ghost. And so he gets out 6 years later. And upon first meeting, meeting back up with the crew, he says, I've got a deal for you. I learned from these Russians while I was in prison that there's going to be a movement of money that's going to happen. It's going to be in these armored cars at this time, and here's the thing, it happens in a week. So their deal is like they've never put together a heist so quickly. It's sold as a sure thing, and that you got to trust this guy. And obviously, there's some shiftiness going on here, especially the character who's bringing this to him. He's very shifty-eyed, but plans go awry because life gets in the way. There's this subplot with what's the guy? His name is Idris Elba. He has a sister who is surprisingly out of rehab, just been released from rehab, right? Maybe a few days before the heist. And she has some nefarious dealings that somehow connect with the Russians, and the lines of communication fall apart. The heist falls apart, and then it becomes about once the foot stomps down, once the law comes down and things fall apart, all the cockroaches run in their different directions. And this thing kind of seemed to me like it culminates in the way that True Romance does. They try to, there's a hotel shootout sequence that is trying to be reminiscent of something without having any real gravity. It's just bullets and feathers flying everywhere.
Well, I think you made a good point, Steve, where you say that we get I'd say a good third of the movie has shown us all the sumptuous lifestyle these guys have, the apartments, the clothes, the cars.
And it's attractive. It's inviting.
But that's supposed to make us know they're successful thieves. Nothing they do as far as their planning of crimes, committing of crimes, or anything else backs that up. These guys can't do a robbery. They can't plan anything. They look ridiculous holding guns. But hey, they've got cool cars and
it's all about style
and suits. It's all about style. There is no substance.
And Hayden Christensen knows how to play the piano while wearing a really cool hat.
Yeah, really, really cool.
It's like a commercial for malt liquor. That one guy has this amazing apartment, like 30 stories up, that has this glass ledge that just looks out onto the city. And when they do a rendezvous, they do it in a very picturesque place. It's either on top of a building or in a grand vista.
But on the other hand, those are all the bad guys. On the other hand, there are the cops, which is Matt Dillon.
Yes.
And is it Jay Hernandez?
Yes.
And, I have a soft spot for Matt Dillon. I just do.
Yeah, me too. He's the reason I wanted to see this.
And were you disappointed?
Sort of.
Yeah, I thought
sort of.
It's like,
very.
God, this is like he knows that he's in it for a paycheck, and fuck you, I'm just going to do the job. It's just boring. He sleepwalks through the whole performance.
Yeah. Plus, the story is just kind of lame because it's.
It doesn't support it at all.
The corruption going on within the precinct, and him covering for another guy, and him wanting to be a better father, and it's all played out really immaturely. I mean, I think it's played out for an audience that may not have much experience in watching how these things transpire. I mean, it's like kind of just really basic stuff. He wants to be a better dad, so they work in these series of scenes with his daughter where he's just overtly taking a detour from getting an ice cream just so he can follow up on a lead.
Right. And it's so unbelievable. He's got his daughter in the car and buckle up, honey, we're going to chase bad guys.
It's that simple.
But the character, the daughter, is kicked out of the movie as soon as she's done her work of setting up the another emotional level. It has nothing to do with the story. She doesn't appear once her usefulness to the little plot twist is over.
And then they cut to these Russian bad guys that are sort of come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Apparently they're the guys who know about this, transfer of money that's going to take place. And the thing that kind of gets me about the way the Russians are presented is that, like, haven't we seen enough of bad guys in tracksuits?
Yeah.
It says, like, yeah, tracksuit. And it's like a tracksuit that to me says, it's like, I'm relaxing, but at the same time I might hurt you.
Yeah. Plus, I think Russian mobsters are getting to be like Nazis in the old war movies. We need a bad guy. Let's bring in Russian mobsters. Yeah. I'm like, whatever. It just didn't make any sense. It's a few
so much ambiance, but just vapid.
A few weeks before I saw this, I watched David Mamet's Heist with Gene Hackman and Delroy Lindo and Danny DeVito.
I thought it was okay. Smart film.
So much smarter than this. It's a little stilted because that's what Mamet does, but so much smarter than this. The twist was pretty predictable, but at least they had a twist. It wasn't one of these, it's like they crimped. And,
I did like Heist, though, but I have to admit I brought it over to Newbury Comics and traded it in for something else.
I would too.
It's all right, but
Yeah.
I used it. I put it towards another purchase. I don't remember what.
But anyway, I would do the same thing with the money you could spend seeing this Takers in theaters. I would put it towards the purchase of another ticket.
Yeah, I can't recommend it. It's just it's stylish, and I enjoyed it in the sense that I like the production design and I like some of the sleekness of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. I mean, it's just so very forgettable. I really wanted to like it. I wanted to like Hayden Christensen's performance. I thought I give him the opportunity to maybe do something deeper than the horribleness of his incarnation of Darth Vader, but just not.
Are we keeping track? Did we see how Steve brought that around to Star Wars?
We got some Star Wars in every show.
Well, that's the thing is, this really could just be those nice looking suits with no one inside.
And Paul, what's his name? Paul
Walker.
Paul Walker is, carries himself. It's nobody's really playing outside their range.
No. God, no.
It's kind of dead. I guess there was one plot twist. That was like, okay, I had the wrong impression there, but not enough to save this movie.
Right. The thing is, a plot twist in a heist movie isn't supposed to go, that's okay. That doesn't work. You should be going, what? And, be shocked. Not just mildly annoyed that the story's turning where it shouldn't go.
Salt had that. Salt had the moment that just, like, it blew my mind. It took the movie from just so average to, like, holy shit, I digged that. And there was no holy shit, I dig that moment in Takers. Salt was just had some insane stuff that I thought was terrific and great plot twists. I didn't see it coming, but here, who cares? Who cares?
Exactly. We can sum up our review, I think, of Takers by those two words. Who cares?
Goodness.
Let's move on to something that's more fun.
Centurion.
Yes.
More fun for those who like blood and decapitation and insane yelling. I mean, this is a lens splattering movie.
We can't outrun them. So we have to outsmart them.
You might as well be dead already.
We are the prey. There is no turning back.
What are you gonna do? Going to eat me out.
Word gets out, every nation will rise against us. Meet Ete. She can hunt anything, over any terrain.
She'll have you gutted and skinned before nightfall.
I don't know about you, but I'm tired of running.
I made a promise to a general to get his soldiers home. That is my task. That is my duty.
This was just...
I was listening
bloody.
To our interview. We did an interview with the director Neil Marshall and
Axel
one of the
Carroll.
stars. What's her name again?
Axel. Carroll.
Axel. So we do this interview, and I was listening to it, and it's funny because the two of us, I'm like, so this was full of action and blood and gore, and you were like, yeah, don't you think it's too bloody?
That's what he's all about,
Well, that's what people should listen, because I think he does a good job defending it in our interview. But see, I didn't I think you reacted more strongly to the level of violence and gore in this than I did, at least not in as positive a way as I do.
Well, I keep getting back to the, how people react to something like this. When you see somebody's head get lopped off and their eyes are still moving or their blood's splurting everywhere, it's just the over the top of the, goriness is like, what do? You laugh. You're like, oh my God, piranha-ish, And then when they're pulling the people out of the water, and you hear what was happening, but then when they pull the kids out of the water and you see these giant gouges taken out of their body, you're like, holy shit,
I don't think I think it's two different kinds of violence. I don't know if that makes sense, but it is. It is. One, it was just like Piranha was gratuitous violence. Just absolutely, it's a feeding frenzy. In Centurion, the violence it's not like, people being gouged into with teeth. It's limbs and decapitations and, war battle violence, that kind of thing. Yeah. But the story, though, it takes place in, was it the 2nd century?
I think it's in the it's first century. It's like
first century. So it takes place in ancient Britain, where the Romans are trying to conquer Great Britain, and they run into some really heavy opposition from the Picts, who are the ancient Scots people. They're fighting it. The Romans, they fight by the book. They form lines. They form, they charge. Like, it's kind of like the British against the Americans in the Revolutionary War, where the Romans have a way of fighting. The Picts are like, no, we're going to throw giant fireballs down on you, and then we'll rush in while you're still trying to deal with those.
Yeah, there was a very cool scene where they held up, with their shields while the Picts rolled these giant fireballs down into them, which was pretty cool. But the Romans, they end up getting whittled apart and basically torn down.
Yeah.
So it becomes, even though the Romans are sort of an overwhelming force, it becomes an even battle in these small skirmishes.
And, when I was trying to think in my mind of a good way to describe the plot for this, but it really is just battle, battle, battle. One guy gets kidnapped, one guy escapes, but it's just battle, battle, battle. With a few personalities thrown in.
Yeah. Well, Michael Fassbender, the movie begins with him running across this frozen tundra, and he does want to escape. It is in a sense a chase movie, where the Romans have been sort of put into, the few that are left that are still there are running from these somewhat evil Picts. They're they're like marauders. Kind of cool. I mean, I like Alexi Carolyn's character. I dig, because she's like, she's like a here we go again, me and Darth Vader. She's like the right hand. She's the evil doer's operator. The Darth Maul like character. And and the women really get into the battle in this one too. How do you pronounce the girl's name? Olga Kurylenko?
That's close enough than I can.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple of terrific fight scenes, particularly one between her and Axel, which is I get. You know what? I it's kind of a spoiler, to even talk about that fight scene, because what I thought after that fight scene is like, oh man, no more warrior chicks.
Yeah.
You mean we're going to have to do the last quarter of this movie with just the guys? Okay. That's spoiler. Sorry about that. But
that's all right. I saw it, so it didn't spoil it for me.
I had a lot of fun watching the movie. I can't say it's really the best that Neil Marshall has done, because I really dig Dog Soldiers, and my favorite of his is The Descent, because of the real fear of the claustrophobia. That was really good. I really felt that. It's better than Doomsday. I'm not saying it's his best.
What? But repeat that again for the people who disagree. It was better than what?
I wasn't a huge fan of Doomsday, and I was surprised that in our interview he admitted that. That he's come to realize that really it's not, that a lot of people don't like it. Which I think a number of directors ignore, and sometimes it's hard to do an interview with a director when you're or even an actor when you're not really a huge fan of the movie. Like, I interviewed Aaron Eckert for Suspect Zero, and I admitted to him during the phone call that I just didn't think this was the best, and he was cool with it. He was cool with it. You know,
Right.
you put yourself in a movie, you make the best decision you can, and you just you have to go with it. You don't score all the time.
See, I learned my lesson with Stephen Baldwin for One Tough Cop.
Okay, but go ahead. I just want to say.
I was going to say, go ahead.
That I'm not saying that Centurion is a lot better than Suspect Zero. It's just that from a journalist point of view, getting the talent to admit that something they'd done in the past really didn't fail. I mean, it's not like their ego's getting in the way and they're ready to defend it. Neil was not like that in any way. He was totally cool about the fact that, in fact, he brought it up. I
brought it up when I gushed about how much I liked it, and then
okay.
We shook hands because he knows people didn't appreciate it for the work it was, but I don't think he thinks it's a bad movie.
No. I think the deeper conversation to be had is that in creating something with a lot of tension, I think there's so much yelling. He does have a lot of yelling and screaming in his movies, and my advice would be to tone that down. To that there was just too much of that kind of yelling insanity in Doomsday, and it just needed to not. You can have a really cool movie and an awesome action scene without that kind of thing. So he did admit that he is learning as a filmmaker. I felt.
Okay.
Well, what did you think? I didn't mean to just.
No. I don't remember that, but I might have been watching Axel. But anyway, back to the movie.
Yeah, it's a beautiful looking film.
Oh yeah, especially the blood.
Well, the blood, amongst everything else, seems to even have a bluish tinge. This is a very blue and white movie. They filmed it darkly, and took out a lot of the red. To a lot of it.
All that blood, and you saying they took out the red?
I'm saying that when you watch this film, there's a post-production process that removes certain colors, and it accentuates sort of an iron-like blue.
Okay. I didn't see that either.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just but you've always had an eye for the more technical aspects, like the.
Well, I used to do cinematography. Yeah,
so
I was an assistant.
I didn't. So I didn't notice that part. That any kind of. Tinge.
Well, they did this also heavily in Takers. Takers was a.
Takers looked like it was filmed.
Film. It was dry. It was very dry. I don't even remember seeing a primary color in the movie. It was, but that's an aesthetic that the director and the cinematographer choose, and it worked for Centurion.
I thought it looked good. Maybe I just couldn't put my eye on my finger on why I thought it looked so good, but I definitely enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, I do recommend it, and it's playing in limited release, and it's also on demand. So if you've got Comcast or whatever your local cable provider is, there should be a Magnolia section where you can, or Magnet.
Yeah.
Download it. Very cool.
But don't you think this is the kind of movie you want to see on the big screen?
Oh yes. Oh, I'm always, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
But this is just it's an extra revenue source. I mean, maybe people in Kansas don't have the access to this kind of a film, so perhaps
move out of Kansas.
Preferably Centurion in theaters, not on download. Yeah. But it's there if you want it for download. So now we've got this situation where I wasn't able to make a film. John wasn't able to make a film. John saw The Last Exorcism.
Yes, I did.
A film I definitely wanted to see it, and I saw Rob Reiner's. I guess what would I call it? It's like a teen romance thing called Flipped.
I want to confess right away that I was at home. It was pouring rain, and I watched the trailer for Flipped, and I was like, I don't want to see that. But evidently, maybe I should.
Well, I was sold on checking it out because the trailer, if I recall, sold it as. From the director of Stand By Me, and maybe there was something about that coming of age thing that Rob Reiner can do that would apply here.
Welcome to your Mayfield School Basket Boys auction.
In school, the only thing I totally flunked out in was understanding girls.
Let's start the bidding at $5.
15, 20, 25, 50.
My, $50.
Sold.
I mean, how can anyone figure out what they're thinking?
Bryce, you should come up here. It's so beautiful.
And how do you talk to them?
I can't. My dad needs me to help him fix a thing. going on with you and Bryce Lasky?
Well, what do you mean? Nothing.
Oh, okay.
But one day, I started getting this really weird feeling. Somewhere between confusion and absolute terror.
There's a bee in her hair.
There's no bee.
Are you freaking mental? Julie Baker, you hate her.
Oh, that's what's so weird. I don't think I do.
She's quite a girl. Every once in a while, you find someone who's iridescent. And when you do, nothing will ever compare.
It's an okay movie. It's an okay movie. Now I want to say that Dan Kimmel, who was sitting behind me while I watched it, he really enjoyed it, and I believe he had said that I wasn't getting some of the nuance of the film, some of the
Dan
humor in it. But
says that a lot.
But in retrospect, I did really enjoy the film more than I conveyed to him. My criticism is that Rob Reiner really, in my mind, I was expecting him to follow up with something that he was able to deliver in the 80s, with The Princess Bride, This is Spinal Tap, The Sure Thing, and, oh God, what else did he direct? Misery.
You mean 30 years ago?
That kind of like, that 80s sort of quality thing, and I don't know, it just, I may have brought the wrong expectation into the film. It seems that he hasn't been able to get back to that for like 20 years. I don't know. I think things kind of went downhill for him after making that failure North with Bruce Willis and
wasn't it a terrible movie?
Elijah Wood. And it's been a while. I hadn't seen The Bucket List. He did another film with Bruce Willis called The Story of Us, I think.
Yeah,
and then he did a really bad one, Alex and Emma from 2003. That was abysmal, and I really wanted to like that one. It being filmed in Boston and all. And it didn't work.
No,
but here it's a step in the right direction, though. But go ahead.
All right, no, you haven't convinced me to go see it. Maybe if it was on cable.
Let me try and put it. Okay, let me see what I can do here. This is a movie where you've got two kids who live across the street from each other, and they meet each other when the one kid, the boy, Callum McAuliffe, I was surprised to find out he's Australian, but anyway, he moves in across the street from Julie, a young girl, as the movie begins. I think she's like 8, and she immediately flips for him. That's the thing. She is just head over heels for this guy. And so for most of her life, the movie covers them growing up from 8, and then we cut forward, we go forward in time to, I believe they're in junior high. They're in 8th grade. And she is still just head over heels for him. And she has a sort of a realization that for all the nice things she does, this guy has just dissed her all along the way. She had some favorite, a favorite tree down the street that she loved, and he wouldn't help her prevent these guys from cutting it down so they could build a house or something like that. And to her, that stood for how he just doesn't care. And so eventually she gets to the point where she's just like, I've given my life to just being head over heels for this guy. He lives across the street. He doesn't notice me or doesn't care, so screw it. But as things would go, there is a moment where Bryce discovers that this girl is really worth it. She's true blue, and it sort of becomes reversed. He has a crush on her, and she kind of has to, and she sort of requires him to, to prove it in a very indirect way, in a very sort of Buddhist kind of way. It's like, once you don't care, then you get what you want, and she doesn't care about him, and now he wants her. Here's the main thing about this film. In film school, they pound it into your head that, film is a visual medium, and you have to show, not tell. So it's sort of like de-accentuating voiceover. Well, this whole movie is done through 2 voiceovers. Her voiceovering her perspective of how she sees him, and his voiceovering his perspective of how he sees her. So the movie is like 90% voiceover, and it's not annoying. They're both perfectly, presentable, voices, and it's good. What I mean by good is the fact that I didn't find it annoying, but the overabundance of voiceover was like, give me a break. Just let the movie, just show us stuff, It kind of wore on me that way. But here's the saving grace of this movie. The dads. Bryce's dad is played by Anthony Edwards. Julie's dad is played by Aidan Quinn. and their characters are what make this movie. In the same way that Daniel Stern's character really and Marcia Gay Harden gave a lot of heart to Whip It, Anthony Edwards and Aidan Quinn give a lot of heart and perspective to Flipped. I think that's where the real movie is, in what each parent perceives their family to be, and the way they're brought up, and the way they do things, and there's a dinner table scene where they come together with the two families after living across the street from each other for 10 years and not even having either over to dinner. They finally have each other over for dinner, and everything gets spelled out. And it's entertaining because of that. I think it's more entertaining not so much because of the relationship between the kids, but between how the parents relate to each other. And I don't know if I've sold you on it in that sense. I think Aidan Quinn and Anthony Edwards were terrific. They're righteous in their own way, but they're nice. I mean, Aidan Quinn is like a Juno dad. He's a good guy. And
right.
Anthony Edwards is a bit more harsh and certainly more judgmental, and maybe that's why Bryce is the way he is towards Julie. So, it plays out in an interesting way. Plus, I think what Rob Reiner brings to it is his sense of nostalgia. It takes place in the 50s, early 60s, and, he does a great job with that. It's Stand By Me in that way, if in that way only. But,
Well, you've upgraded from not wanting to see it to maybe a rental.
Okay.
So that's good, right?
Yeah. I was impressed with Aidan Quinn's performance, and Anthony Edwards was good. It's all right, And there's a particularly funny scene called the Basket Boy Auction, where the boys pack these baskets with different types of food for lunch, and they, for charity, they get up on stage at school, and all the girls come into the auditorium and they auction the guys off to the girls to have lunch with the guys. So it was a pretty funny scene because it's described as basically a meat market for 8th grade girls. And I am done. That's the best I can do for this movie, John.
Exorcism is alive and well. The Bible is filled with demons. If you believe in God, you have to believe in the devil.
We're looking for the Sweetser farm.
You want to make a U-turn, and then I want you to go back where you came from.
If you can't save my daughter's soul, I will.
You should be compelled to leave this girl.
All right. Well, I'm gonna make The Last Exorcist short and sweet.
Gotcha.
It's really good up until about the last 20 minutes. I mean, it's really good. It's scary. It's funny. The acting is really cool. It's the story of and I'm saying all this admitting that it looks like it was shot on a cell phone, which is one of my bugaboos.
Yes.
But this is it's told as though it was a fake documentary about a preacher in Louisiana who was raised from a little kid to be a preacher in a church and to perform exorcisms, and somewhere along the line, as he's an adult, he reads a story in the newspaper about a young boy who is suffocated during an exorcism, and it makes him stop and think, what am I doing? This is all fake. So he joins up with a documentary filmmaker, and they start doing an expose about how fake exorcism are, and it's really fun because he shows you how how they make the bed move, how they make the how they put like electrodes in their rings to make the quote unquote possessed person jump when they touch him and stuff like that. So it's interesting. But then he gets a letter from a rural farmer in Louisiana saying, my daughter's possessed, the livestock are being slaughtered, she sleepwalks, she does all this weird stuff. Uh-huh. Can you come and get the devil out of her? And so this guy, Cotton Marcus, goes down and he brings the crew and he goes, look, I'm going to fake the exorcism. You'll see how fake it is and she'll believe she's cured. So he fakes the exorcism and she's not cured. She's even more possessed.
Crazy.
And so he has to face all the first he was believing, now he's a non-believer, and then all of a sudden all his non-beliefs are being challenged because this girl looks and acts possessed.
So you can mess up an exorcism and make it worse.
Yeah, or you can fake one and it just gets worse. And so but all the time, all this tension's building, and it's scary and it's fun. In the back of your head, you realize, they're painting themselves in a corner here. How are they going to get out of this? And at first, you're like, well, you want to see how are they going to, make this work? What's going to happen to make this effective? And then the ending comes, and you're just like, that's it? That's all they came up with was that crappy ending? I wasted 90 minutes for that? Mm-hmm. And now I feel like I'm the one who's been, faked out by someone, let alone the priest faking the exorcisms. This is a filmmaker faking me out thinking, well, this is a really intelligent, smart thriller. And at the end, you're just like, really? It's a bad B movie? And then suddenly I hated the fact that it was shot on a cell phone.
If this movie had a scary moment, what moment was it? What was the moment that was like in your head making you go, holy shit, that was good?
When the little there's a scene where they think they've the girl it's post fake exorcism time, and the little girl has done something really bizarre, and so they've sedated her and put her in a room, and they can hear a baby crying, which is a creepy sound to begin with.
Yeah.
And then they start to think that the girl has a baby in the room with her and she's killing the baby. And it gets really intense. They're like pounding on the door. There's a baby crying. There's screaming going on. And they burst in the room to find what they find. I don't know if I should tell people, but what they find is terrifying.
Okay.
What they find is just terrifying, and it's so twisted. You're just like, what the? I am on a roller coaster, and I have just gone up over the big hill, and I'm plunging down into madness here. And it really
That's
worked.
Good.
And
now,
I was like,
now
wow.
You've got me, man, because I do want to see this film, and now I'm like, okay, I have to see it.
Yep. Yeah. The thing is, I would recommend seeing it, but, and then I would love to debate the ending with you because I think the ending's such crap.
Are you not recommending seeing it because of the ending?
No, I would.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying the ending turned it from being like a 3.5-star movie to a 1.5-star movie because it just pissed me off. And I don't think it's because it wasn't the ending I wanted. It's because the ending was a complete cheap cop-out.
Well, perhaps Eli Roth will have one of those alternate endings on the DVD.
And here's the thing. This is funny. Before the screening, Eli Roth had a public service announcement video shown to the audience. And he says, it's just him sitting in front of the camera, and he says, hi, horror movies either sink or swim by word of mouth. And so if we want you to tweet your reviews of this movie, you're the first people to see it. Before the critics get to it, we want you to become a twittic. He said the word twittic, and tweet your critique of the movie to Lionsgate. And then we will take they're going to use blurbs from tweets and put them on the poster, just like the real critics. It was this insane pitch for people to tweet reviews so he could get blurbs for the poster.
And this is really something you're not going to see in its regular release.
Well, I don't think so, no, because they were trying to build – this is all for, the advanced screenings.
Right.
They were trying to get buzz – they're just trying to get buzz.
Yeah.
And people are going to write about it on the internet and tweet about it anyway. Lionsgate is, I think, just trying to throw the net out and catch what they can and control it the way they want. So if Joe Blow on tweet says this is the greatest horror movie ever made, on the TV ad there'll be greatest horror movie ever made, Joe Blow from tweets. Mm-hmm. And doesn't cost the studio anything. It's not a real review. It's not a real critic. Joe Blow from tweets gets his name on a poster. Happy boy. It's good marketing, but I think it's also a typical Eli Roth scam trick. He is the William Castle of today's movies.
What would you have tweeted, John? What would you have tweeted?
Ending blows.
In the ending blows.
Ending blows. How many characters do I get?
John Black, the Post Movie Podcast.
What does a tweet get? How many do you get?
Like
so many characters?
140, I guess.
Yeah, so I would say, dear Eli Roth, you had me for a while, but the ending sucks. Something like that, I don't think I'd end up on the poster. Let's put it that way.
I'm going to check it out.
I would, but maybe in theaters too, because even on at home on TV, I think there's you want to have that atmosphere when a horror movie gets going, and I think there's a lot of tension in this movie that just works better with a movie theater full of people. There's that general buzz that goes on.
I think we would have had an even better experience with Piranha had the audience been more rowdy.
Oh, yeah.
And perhaps I had not been sitting in front of somebody that had incredible foot odor. Oh, my God. Yeah, that was displeasing. It's just a rowdy audience, please.
Yeah. But I think generally I would definitely recommend seeing it. And, again, if anyone does see it and wants to talk about the ending, send me an email, drop me a line.
Yes, I should have said that at the beginning of the episode. Send us an email, postmoviepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We actually would like to receive an email. Again, our last plea, our last plea for emails resulted in 2. So maybe, maybe someone else there will be inclined to send us a hey. We dig it or we don't. Let's just move on to picks real quick. What I've got in my hands is the 12 movie collection, again, from Mill Creek Entertainment. Hollywood Hotties Burn Up the Big Screen in Big Screen Bombshells, the 12 movie collection from Mill Creek Entertainment. And so I watched a couple of them this week. I watched...
Where was your girlfriend when this was going on? Was she sitting there going, "Oh, honey, you should watch Big Screen Bombshells. I'm going shopping."
No, it doesn't really go over well that way.
Really?
Well, so I watched Cindy and Donna, and it was so bad I could only take about half of it. It's not even worth, so whatever, but I did watch it, so I'm just saying. But the one film that I did dig was Super Chick.
She's all woman, and all that every woman wants to be. Forceful, feminine, free, super brave, super body, supercharged. Super Chick, a swinging motion picture experience about a super kind of woman.
Which is the story of this airline stewardess who has boyfriends in a number of different cities. And she's like constantly fending off these guys hitting her. And she's also a practitioner of karate. And so
not karate.
It's a 1971 flick that has all the flair of that era, with the cheesy interior plane design. So when one of these guys in one of the towns tries to put together a robbery, she foils this airplane robbery attempt on the plane, doing like jujitsu in the first class section. So if there's anything that this movie is really worth seeing for, it's that. And so that's my one recommendation off Big Screen Bombshells. I'm going to check out a couple more. So I started watching Las Vegas Lady, but okay, enough about this. In all seriousness, I wanted to offer another pick really quickly. And that is because, we saw Richard Dreyfuss at the beginning of Piranha 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened that in that week, I had introduced Sarah to The Goodbye Girl.
Say hello to Richard Dreyfuss.
My kingdom for the horse.
Say hello to Marcia Mason.
An actor.
Say hello to Quinn Cummings.
I think he's kind of cute. He reminds me of a dog that nobody wants.
Say hello to Neil Simon's tender, funny love story.
If you don't let go of me, I am going to push your other eye out.
Say hello to The Goodbye Girl.
The Neil Simon,
1977.
And she just loved it. She just loved it. And I remember really loving it, and we watched it, and just, it's a terrific film. It was released 2 weeks after Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 77, and Dreyfuss won the Oscar for it, and it's a sweet movie, and I just wanted to recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it. It really is. It's all about Richard Dreyfuss's performance, but I can't recommend it highly enough. In a way, it's like a guilty pleasure. And the performance from the kid in the movie, Quinn Cummings, is terrific. And I was surprised to see that she was also nominated for an Academy Award. And deservedly so. Yeah. Yeah, she plays the daughter.
Quickly on the subject of Richard Dreyfuss, you ever see Inserts?
I have not.
It's I think it's a movie he would gladly pay to have all copies so he could burn them.
You be quiet! 5 minutes! Let me think. And action. Tiger, I want to tiger. I want to tiger. I want to feel those veins popping and those little bones bursting into paste.
It's 1920s, 1930s Hollywood, and he's a porno director. It's. I remember seeing it because I saw it in theaters when it came out because it was right around the time where, because of Close Encounters and Goodbye Girl and everything and Jaws, he could do no wrong. He could do any project he wanted to, and that's how I think this project got made, and it almost destroyed his career.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm surprised I'm not familiar with it.
I'll pass it on to you.
I'd love to see it.
Look for it.
I think I mentioned this before. I had the pleasure of meeting him on the set of The Lighthouse Keeper, which filmed in Hyannisport last year, but the movie still hasn't come out yet. But it was just in circumstance where I went down to visit my mom, and the movie crew was there, and I got to talking with some of the guys, and so Richard Dreyfuss was there, and got to meet Bruce Dern too. They were just filming next door, which was pretty cool. The Lighthouse Keeper in theaters later this year, maybe, or maybe even direct to video. Who knows?
All right, my recommendation.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of a series of movies, rather than a single movie. But the History Channel, the fine folks over at the History Channel, sent me a box of these films that are called Instant Experts. And they're kind of, at first you look at them and you're like, well, these are kind of like DVD cliff notes for kids, because I don't have to read about the Mayflower. I can watch this 2-hour movie about the Mayflower and, pass my test. But they're these really fascinating they're not really documentaries, because there's actors that kind of, the History Channel programs. So, there's one on the Mayflower, there's one on Egypt, there's one on the French Revolution. They're all really well done. They're interesting. I'm a big fan of history anyway, but they have a nice blend of, experts giving you, the background, and then actors pretending to be, Marie Antoinette and Louis the XIV, running around Versailles, that kind of thing. And then at the end of each one, there's a quiz. There's a study guide inside. So they are designed for kids, but I just got hooked on them. So I watched the Mayflower, Egypt, what else? The Story of Oil, Beowulf. I mean, if I had a movie like this about Beowulf back when I was in high school, I would have read the stupid book, instead of, getting the cliff notes. So I think people, they're called Instant Experts. They're from the History Channel. I think they're worth checking out.
Cool.
And then one quick one is I saw this movie, Dorian Gray, which is based on the Oscar Wilde novel.
Yeah.
And it stars a guy named Ben Barnes and Colin Firth. Colin Firth is Henry, the older man who tries to corrupt him. And it's basically the same story. There's a young innocent man. He comes to London. He gets his portrait painted, and he makes a wish at a party that, I wish I never grew old. I wish the painting did, or whatever. He makes some kind of soul transference where the painting grows old, shows all the scars he should have, all the aging and horror that he sees ends up on the painting, and he stays a beautiful young man while everyone around him grows old and more decayed. The reason why it's good is it's an updating. It's not masterpiece theater. It's not very stodgy. It's fresh. It feels real. The debauchery is graphically portrayed, and the final confrontation between Dorian and the thing that is the portrait. It's state-of-the-art special effects. It's really cool. It's like, wow. So it's a good story anyway, but it's very well done in this new production with Ben Barnes and Colin Firth.
Wow, I'm intrigued. I was not familiar with that at all.
It's well worth checking out.
Man, I watched your recommendation from last week, Temple Grandin. Loved it.
Oh no, you sure?
Claire Danes was terrific. She really was. We Sarah and I watched it. We enjoyed it, and learned a bit about how to handle cattle. But her performance is really what makes that movie. Her reactions, and I think what I also really enjoyed were these sort of intermittent intermittent animated sequences that sort of explained how she viewed the world.
Yeah.
In lines and graphs and numbers and how things relate to each other.
Yeah, she sees the world in pictures, and I think they do a great job of explaining that through those bits and pieces. David Strathairn.
Yeah, scene one on, pictures in perspective. So
all right, now that you've seen it, there's her was it her college graduation or high school graduation?
Yeah.
Where she sings. Such a cornball moment, but I was like, my God, but it's also brilliant too. I mean, it's just and I don't know, I just got a big kick out of it. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So as always, be sure to send us an email at postmoviepodcast@gmail.com and let us know what you think of the show. And be sure to check us out online. We're on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at twitter.com/SteveHead. And all of our episodes are online at post-movie.net. So until next week, I'm Steve Head.
And I'm John Black.
And this is the Post Movie Podcast. So long.